Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our next session of our free workshop Fridays. My name is Mike McLeod. I'm the Director of Business Development for the BC Hotel Association. I'd like to acknowledge this morning that I'm coming to you from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. It's my pleasure to introduce our next session, which will be entitled Creating Engaged Teams Through Hotel Finances. And I'm pleased to introduce David Lund, who is a hospitality financial leadership pioneer who has branded himself the Hotel Financial Coach. Just as any great hotel is true to their brand, so is David. His client commitment is about exceptional service, and his number one focus is to help his clients be more prosperous as individuals or teams. David's background includes over 30 years as a regional controller, corporate financial director, hotel manager, and controller throughout North America at multiple locations. It's my pleasure to welcome David Lund. David, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. And you can see my full screen?
Yes, we just can't see you.
Oh, well, I tried to turn my camera on, but it told me that I wasn't allowed to.
Sorry about the tech. There you go.
There we go. Well, good morning, everyone. How is everyone today? Hope all is well. I'm coming to you from the great state of Maine, the other end of the continent, and it's a beautiful day here. I'm envious. Obviously, you're in British Columbia, and I used to live there. It's a great place. I lived in both Victoria and Vancouver, and a couple of my daughters were born in Victoria, so I have a real soft spot in my heart for the province of British Columbia. Anyways, what I want to talk to you today about is how you can create a financially engaged leadership team in your hotel. And then on top of that, what exactly is the system we can use for financial leadership, and what's the ROI on that? I want to talk a bit about the reality in today's hotel world, what your opportunities are. I'm going to explain what financial leadership is all about. I'm also going to talk about what your leaders are looking for, what you need to teach them so they can help you more. And then the system that you can introduce in your hotel for financial leadership. And then toward the end, I'm going to show you how you can measure your investment in financial leadership and how to calculate the return on investment. And be sure to stick around to the end because I have a very special gift, actually 4 very special gifts for 4 lucky participants, as well as gifts for everyone. So be sure to stick around to the end. So as this famous gentleman once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, we've certainly been through and are continuing to endure, the most significant crisis of any of our lifetimes. And just like he says, don't let it go to waste. What can we learn from this? How can we change the way we do our business today? And I believe largely, not completely, but largely the model for the hotel business these days is broken. And if you look back 50 years ago, the hotel business throughout at least North America was largely owner operators. There was some franchisers on the horizon, but we quickly moved into owners being management companies largely. And from there, we moved into the period of the great expansion with REITs, a lot of investment into the hotel space for them. And then the creation of what we all know and live today, which is the internet in the late 90s, late 80s and 90s, really became something. And then about 20 years ago, the first OTA came along, Expedia, first major OTA. And we all know what's happened with that. And then about 10 years ago, vacation rentals became a big part of the landscape. Um, all of these things have really drastically affected our business. So really, it's all about what's happening now, and we all know what's happening now. But what's next? What's next for the hotel business? What's next for you? And I like to think about our business when I'm not too depressed, anyways. I like to think about our business if it were a brand new app, and there was some really smart person in the Silicon Valley dreaming up what the hotel business would look like and function like, and what we would need to do to manage it and run it. I believe it would look completely different than it does look for us today. I believe there'd be a lot of features, and there would be a lot of things that we don't do anymore. And you know, what I think is that the way forward in our business is to look at how you can reinvest in your management team. That's the key part of the oil that always makes your business successful, is the team you have working for you. And as we all know, a year ago, a lot of those people had to disappear. They had to be furloughed. They had to be laid off. But we're going to get to the point now where we're turning the corner, and in 2021, we're going to be rebuilding our businesses. In 2022, hopefully, we'll be back on firm footing pretty much everywhere. But I believe that the biggest impact you can have inside of your business is if you create a financially engaged management team. And if you're the owner or the GM of the hotel or the business, it's up to you to develop your own expertise on how you manage the leadership team around the numbers. And no brand or management company is ever going to do this for you. It's up to you. And it's business thinking skills that you want to teach your leaders and what you want to promote. And it's not accounting. You have an accounting department, or you have a corporate office that does the accounting, or you don't want your housekeeper or your engineer to ever do the accounting, but you want them to be able to manage their finances. That's what it's all about. And creating a financially engaged leadership team, it's an investment. It's not an expense. And the difference between an investment and an expense is toilet paper. You buy it, you use it, it's gone. But an investment is something where you spend your money and you build something and you create something, and it gives you a return. And in this case, it can give you a return forever, every single month, every single year that you run your business. So today I'm going to show you what's missing with financial leadership in your hotel. And I'm also going to show you the system you can use to create a more sustainable and profitable future. And I said in the beginning, be sure to stick around to the end, because I've got some goodies for you. So what can you change inside of your business? Well, it really relates to how your team functions, what you do, how you lead them. And this is a very common conversation that happens inside of a lot of businesses and a lot of hospitality businesses. And it kind of goes like this: from the owner to the manager, or, it could be the CFO, CEO, stakeholders. It's all the same. The question is, what happens if we spend money on our people and they leave? Well, the real smart answer and the thoughtful answer is, well, what happens if we don't spend any money on them, we don't invest in them, and they stick around and they stay? That's really what we're talking about. And that's really the mindset that you've got to adopt to be successful going forward. That's always been the mantra in our business: is you can start out the back door washing dishes, or you can be making beds, and 20 years later you can be running the company. Well, that doesn't happen unless people invest in people. And our industry's taken a big hit in the last year because of what's happened, and we need to rebuild, and we need to invest. Just like we need to invest in the bricks and mortar to make our facade look great and to make our product look great, we also have to invest in our people. It just doesn't happen all by itself. It won't happen all by itself. So I have some questions for all of you about hotel profitability. They kind of go like this. What would it be worth to your hotel's bottom line if your managers willingly and enthusiastically prepared their monthly forecast and their budgets for their expenses and for their payroll? And what if they did that enthusiastically every single month? And what would it be worth if these same managers used a zero base for their expenses and really knew what was in the middle of their financial statement? And what if they used staffing guides to budget and forecast their payroll? What would that be worth to your business? And then what would it be worth if those same managers were able to track the revenues in the hotel throughout the month and really were plugged into where we're going to finish the month so that they were on top of the revenue picture for the month? And then what would it be worth if those same managers were then able to adjust their purchase orders and their schedules to reflect the reality of the business that we're going to have this month? And if they were able to then pivot and deliver on the flow through according to the business volume, what would that be worth? And then what would it be worth if those same managers made sure that the department they managed and the accounts they were responsible for were clean at the end of the month, and that we didn't have any surprises next month or next quarter or next year? What would that be worth to your business? And then finally, what would it be worth if those same managers actually prepared a commentary every single month that explained what their assumptions were, what worked inside of their forecast, what didn't work, with a idea of constant improvement inside of our business every single month? What would those 5 things be worth? Well, I know, and you know, that's the holy grail. They would be worth lots and lots of money. And that's what we're talking about. How do we do that? So, what is financial leadership, anyways? And I like to think that I coined this phrase, hospitality financial leadership, because when I started my business almost 7 years ago, I Googled it and I got nothing. I got a couple of college professors waxing on about something, but it wasn't what I wanted to talk about. Financial leadership and hospitality is becoming obsessed with what's in the middle of your statement. And we all know that our managers and our colleagues, they've got to look after the guests. They've got to look after our other colleagues. We have our departments to manage. But the money piece is the missing element in our business. How do we manage the money? So if I'm the GM or if I'm the owner, my mantra is teaching my team financial leadership. And it's not accounting, it's business thinking. All I want them to do is manage their payroll and their expenses. And I don't want them to do the accounting. The accounting department is there for that. So I need to teach them the tools and show them the way. So what do your leaders want? That's really important, because if you can give people what they want, they will naturally do what you want. So the number one thing that your leaders want is they want skills that they're going to be able to absorb, that are valuable, that they can use to help propel their career, so they can help themselves be more prosperous. That's what they want from you. And again, that is the grand deal in the hotel business. You work your butt off, and the stakeholders look after you, and they bring you along, and they give you a career. That's the deal. What else do leaders want? They want to know that they make a difference. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the need to make a difference is right at the top of the pyramid between self-actualization and esteem. And it's been proven that even prisoners have a need, a human need, to make a difference. So if you can show people that their numbers and the effort they make around their numbers in their department make a difference, they will naturally want to do more. That's a fact. The other thing that your leaders want is they want to see your commitment for their development. Think back to your own career and think back to the people that have been influential in your life, and think about what they did to help you, and also think about what you'd be willing to do for them. just about anything, as long as it's not illegal or immoral, you'd probably do, because that's what we do for people who help us. Um, we've all got stories of that, but that's the opportunity you have right now. You're on the precipice of this great reinvention of our business. You have this ability to create that for them. On the flip side, what are your leaders uh, not wanting? What do you not want to do for them? Number one, we want to create an environment where we're talking about agreements and drop our expectations. Today's leader wants something more focused on them. So when we have expectations, even though we think that that's just the way it needs to run, and we all know that expectations are everywhere in our world, it's off-putting. And if someone has an expectation of you and you haven't agreed to do something, you're not willingly going to want to do it. So we need to change our language, move to the language of agreements. And I have a great audio that talks about the difference between expectations and agreements. And if anybody would like to get a copy of it, just send me an email. Don't do this. Don't make up numbers for people and give them to them and say, here's your budget, here's your forecast, because they will quietly thumb their finger at you. Who are you to give me my numbers? I want to make up my own numbers. I want to be in charge of my own destiny. So don't do that, because when you do that, there's zero buy-in. And always, always, always remember this about our business. Wanting perfection is paramount to insanity. So when we talk about guest service, if you told your neighbor you thought that the guest service in your hotel this week, tomorrow, this year is going to be perfect, they would think you're crazy. And the same with colleague engagement. If we thought that the colleagues are all going to do everything we say 100% of the time, people would lock you up, because we know that that's not how it works. Guest service is never going to be perfect. Colleagues are never going to do things 100% the way we want. But you know what we do every day is we come to work and we climb that mountain, and we strive to get a very high level of guest service and a very high level of colleague engagement, all the while knowing it's never going to be perfect. Well, this is great news, because the numbers are exactly the same. The numbers are never going to be perfect. What's the only thing we know for sure about the budget or forecast? The only thing we know for sure about the budget or the forecast is that it's wrong. It's wrong every time. So we need to drop this idea that the numbers are like grade 10 math, where there is an answer for your algebra problem, right or wrong. The numbers don't work that way in the hotel, and we need to treat them differently. So always remember, just like guest service and just like colleague engagement, the numbers, the finances, they're never done. We're never done with them. They're never going away. It's just another part of what we need to do. And when we hire people and when we promote people and when we train people, if we're not working on all three of those legs at the same time, guest service, colleague engagement, and financial leadership, we don't have a balanced agenda. So how do you create a financially engaged leadership team in your hotel? Well, big surprise here, but it's exactly the same way you create great guest service and great colleague engagement. You plant a seed and you nurture it. Just like anything else, you've got to create it. So I'm going to turn my attention now to focus on what you need to teach your leaders, what they need to know. And it's a mixture of business and hotel world. Combine those two things together. But again, none of these things are accounting. Again, someone else is going to do the accounting. We don't want them to do that. First thing we need to teach them is that the finances are just a system. It's a language that all of us can learn. And I'm sure that there's many people on this call right now that can think back in the earlier part of their career when they didn't understand what the numbers were all about. And they look across that bridge today and they look back to where they were and they wonder what all the fuss was about. Because really, once you understand It's like riding a bicycle. It's not such a mystery when you know how to do it. That's what we need to impart upon people. It's business thinking. It's a language. We want to get proficient at that language. We then want to teach others. We want to build our skills and abilities. These are directly related to our personal prosperity in life. And these allow you to grow your ability to manage your business. The first thing we want to explain to people is that everything we do has a reason. It's all based on generally accepted accounting principles. I don't like to use that word very often, accounting, but it's based on that. And much like the legal profession and much like the doctors, physicians in our world, we make up our own standards. We make up our own rules as to how we do things. The government has a role to play when it comes to, penalizing people and taxing people, but that's not what I'm talking about. When it comes to how we do things, they're all based on principles. And a lot of times people wonder why we want them to do what we're asking them to do. And if we don't explain, and if we don't bring it home to them, they're never going to perform those tasks with the same kind of willingness they would if they understood. The second thing we need to be able to explain to them is that everything we do in the hotel world as it relates to GAAP is based on the Uniform System of Accounts for the lodging industry. This is our Bible. It's a book that's in its 11th edition. It's been published for almost 100 years. And it's what we use in our industry that tells us how we present financial information. It's a very useful book. But I want to also caution a lot of you that probably know what I'm talking about, that there's a lot of people that don't use USALI, and it's because they probably don't realize that it exists. So if they're looking at their P&L and it's not organized according to the uniform system, it looks very different than what it should. And right off the bat, they're not operating with a full deck. They're not able to see what's happening inside of their hotel because their financial statements are not helping them. The next thing we want to teach our people is the difference between the accrual basis of accounting and the cash basis. We want to use the accrual basis of accounting, where we're producing meaningful financial statements, not the cash basis. We want to teach them about the various different business types. So every single one of the people on this call represents a business, and it's got a different foundation. Some of them are sole proprietors, some are partnerships, some are part of REITs, some are part of corporations, all kinds of different derivatives of the same thing, but teach them about those things. We want to teach them about RevPAR index and how we calculate that in our marketplace, how to read a STAR report. These are all things that are fascinating to hotel people because you start to unlock what's happening inside of the engine room. They get really excited. And I know, because I've done this 1,000 times with people, when you start explaining what goes on, they get engaged, they get excited, they get interested. Next thing you want to do is teach them how to read the profit and loss statement. Teach them what it all means. Have a class, get them together, go through it page by page. It's fascinating. Every single line means something. Teach them about segmentation. Where does all of our business come from? Is it corporate? Is it group? Is it transient? Is it leisure? What are the different makeups of each one of these parts of our segmentation? How much do they typically pay? What does it cost us to get all of this different business? What's the profitability of one customer versus another? Who spends more on property? Who's easier on our physical goods? Who's a pain in the butt to look after when they're staying with us? Who's a pain in the butt to clean up after? All of these things greatly impact the profitability and the efficient running of the hotel. Segmentation, teach them about it. Teach them about assets. What are they? How do they function on the balance sheet? Teach them about liabilities. What are they? What do they mean? Teach them about the definition of owner's equity and how that all fits together. Teach them how to read a balance sheet. Teach them about where to find the assets, the liabilities, and the owner's equity. Teach them about the connection between the income statement and the balance sheet in the form of the fundamental accounting equation. These are all things that every owner wants his manager to be able to explain and to be able to be on top of. So create that with your own leadership team and show them the way. They will thank you. Teach them some of the basic principles that undermine what we do. And again, if you're asking someone to do something month after month and they don't know why they're doing it, they're not going to perform that function as well. So teach them the matching principle. It's very straightforward, but it's probably the most important element that you can get across to them. I can remember month after month, year after year, chasing the managers inside of my hotels to hand in their accruals. Well, it never dawned on me in those days to explain the matching principle to them and that that's why I needed them to hand in their invoice. They just thought I was being a pain in the butt and really interested in paying invoices on time or something. I don't know. Teach them the objectivity principle that we need evidence for everything. And the reason why is that when auditors come and when people want to know what's going on inside of our business, we can't just say, well, that's kind of the way it is. This is what I found. You need evidence. Teach them about the consistency principle and why that's so important, and teach them about the materiality principle. There are others, but those are the main ones. When it comes to operations, teach them how to create staffing guides for their department so that we've got fixed and variable payroll, so that we've got a formula for every variable payroll. Show them how we can efficiently run the hotel at various levels of occupancy. Same with food and beverage. Got to have a formula for all of this so that we can continually refine it. Teach them about calculating EFTEs and productivity. I know a lot of hoteliers hang their hat on labor costs, but labor costs in the last 12 months hasn't really been of much use because revenues just went through the floor. Next year, when revenues take off, labor costs is going to be useless as well. We need to be able to track and improve our productivity. And if we were making cars, we'd be obsessed with the number of hours it takes to make a car. Well, we don't make cars. We make hotel rooms. How many hours does it take you to sell one hotel room? What would it be like next year if you could improve that by 10%? That's something we can really get in front of and measure and manage and improve productivity. Teach them about key business indicators inside of your labor picture. Make sure that you've got them set up properly inside of your hotel, and in the rooms area, at the very least, you have these 4 key indicators. Make sure that you teach them how to schedule using productivity. It's one thing to look at a financial statement or do an analysis of what happened last month and realize that the numbers aren't great and the productivity wasn't great. What we want to teach people to do is how to schedule going forward and how to budget and how to forecast using productivity so that we continually are improving the situation and we are continually becoming more profitable. Using a schedule that's got productivity measurements in it, it's easy. All we need to do is take the current schedule we have and add the rooms occupied and add the total number of hours worked and divide the two. All those things are right at your fingertips. You don't need any systems. You don't need a new computer app. You don't need to spend any money. When it comes to expenses, we have to have a plan. We need to begin with the end in mind and know that we can effectively manage our expenses. A lot of people think, well, expenses kind of just happen and we'll be okay. We'll get through it. No, we need to have a plan. And when it comes to expenses, we want to teach our leaders to be on top of their expenses and to use a zero base. So what's a zero base? I get this question all the time. Well, I like to explain it like this. It's like a grocery list. If I sent you to the grocery store with $200 and said, go buy some groceries, you'd come back with $200 worth of groceries, no problem. But if I send you to the grocery store with $200 and a list and say, this is what I want you to get exactly what's on the list, you come back with what's on the list. Good for you. Well, guess what? Next month, I don't have $200 anymore. I only have $160. What are you going to do without? What are you going to reduce, reuse, recycle? What are you going to forfeit? What are you going to defer? That's what we want to teach our managers to do, is to be able to pivot and to manage that lever. In order to do that with their expenses, they've got to have a zero base. One of the most effective ways we can help them manage and control their expenses, as well as create the data for the zero base, is to use checkbooks. in every single department. And again, you don't need a computer system. I actually don't even recommend them. They don't work very well. Just use an Excel sheet where you've got a tab for every single account that you're responsible for, and write down the stuff you order, and then track what's come in, tell accounting what you need to accrue. It's amazing once we start doing this. And I think probably in a lot of your hotels, you'll have one or two department heads that already use this. So a great pro tip is to find a housekeeper or a director of maintenance or someone who's on top of their expenses. They're going to be using a checkbook. They're going to have detailed records. Get them to teach the rest of the managers in your hotel how to manage their expenses. And don't accept the case when a manager doesn't deliver on their numbers. They don't get a free pass. Teach your managers and leaders about flow through. You know, this summer, we're going to be looking at financial statements where we have huge increases in revenue year over year. I'm pretty confident of that. But how much of that revenue is translating into profit? Where is the money going? And if we don't effectively and efficiently manage the middle of our statement and produce a great flow through, we could easily burn up a lot of that additional revenue in the way of payroll and expenses and cost of goods. So managing flow through and teaching your leaders how to do it is essential. Teach them about return on investment. They all want things. They all want new equipment for their department. They want you to spend money on things that are going to help them generate better profits. Well, show them how to do a simple return on investment analysis where you include the price of what you want to buy, but how is it going to help your business? Let's get right down to the micro elements of that. Teach them how to do that. It's not difficult. Teach them how to write a great commentary. So, the constant improvement that we're looking for inside of our hotel every month is being able to go back and look at what happened. It's invaluable to be able to look back and let's say we're heading into April. Well, what happened in April 2019 and April 2018 in our hotel? Because the person who's there running the department now wasn't there then anyways. But things repeat themselves on our calendar a lot. So having a great commentary points to continuous improvement, the practice of that, like I talked about in the beginning, but it's a great document to have. Teach them how to write that properly so that they're not just regurgitating the numbers, that they're actually explaining what the assumptions were, what worked, what didn't work. Make sure it's broad-based so that it covers all the departments in the hotel, as well as the business environment. So now we're going to switch gears and I want to talk about the system you can set up, the system that I teach my clients as it relates to financial leadership. I think systems are great. And systems are the very backbone of how we operate efficiently. And when I say systems, I don't mean computer systems. I mean how we organize and communicate what's going on inside of our world. That's what I'm talking about. And again, you don't need a computer system to do this. You just need organization and communication. So the first part of the system is what I call every line needs an owner. And what we literally need to do is go through the financial statement and assign, make agreements, never having expectations, make agreements with every single one of our leaders that they're going to manage the lines of payroll and expense and cost of goods and revenue so that we encompass every single part of our financial statement. Because the reality is, in a lot of lines inside of your financial statement, you have multiple people impacting the spend of payroll and expenses in certain areas. Some of them it's quite clear, but a lot of them it's very convoluted. So something like guest supplies as an example, you've got people in the housekeeping department, the people at the front desk, the people at the bell desk, people in the sales department, the people in the executive office. They're all spending money that ends up in guest supplies, but you need one person to corral that, to take responsibility for it. You need to save for every single line inside of your P&L. So if there's something offside inside of your P&L, you know exactly who to talk to. And it's not enough to say, rooms will be the rooms person. No, you need to go much deeper. Assign accounts to the housekeeper, front office manager, guest services manager, reservations manager, laundry manager, whoever you have inside of your hotel. If it's smaller, well, then there'll be more people with more accounts, but Be specific. The second part of the system is what I call the monthly financial circle. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to practice what we do. That's the key to getting better with anything. And the way we practice inside of the hotel is our performance is each month. So think about this for a minute. If you and I were working in banquets and every night we did a banquet, we'd get really good at doing banquets quickly because we'd be practicing. And every night after the banquet, we'd go for a beer and we'd talk about what worked and what didn't work. And we'd improve on the things that didn't work and we'd keep the things that work. That's how we develop our system. Well, in the hotel financial world, that happens every single month. That's what we do. Create the monthly financial circle, teach it to your leaders. It's simple. There are 5 steps. I've created an acronym for this. It's called FTARW, but the 5 steps are forecast. You want the leaders that manage those departments to create their own forecast. And you want them to present that forecast. You want it to be consolidated. And if changes need to be made to that forecast, your finance person needs to go back to the department manager and wrestle until those changes are made in their forecast. So they're operating their department with their forecast, not the numbers you've changed at the 11th hour. You want this zero-based, and you want it based on using staffing guides for the payroll. The second thing you want them to do is you want them to track. You want them to know where you're at with the forecast in the month for the month. So much of our business is booked inside of the month. We don't know. Today is the 12th of March. How are we going to finish the end of the month? Are we on track? Are we going to be above? Are we going to be below? Someone needs to be making that call every day at the morning meeting so that we can adjust our purchase orders and our schedules according to the latest forecast. And if the budget and the forecast for the month were 75% occupancy, and the latest forecast today is we're only going to do 69, guess what? I need people to adjust their schedules and their purchase orders. Put the brakes on things. If they don't, they're going to spend too much money. They won't be able to manage the flow through. They won't be able to pivot. So I want to teach them to adjust. This is the most important part of the formula. Next, we want them to review their financial statements at the end of the month, review their GL listing, making sure that every account that they own is right. If you expect your accounting department to do this every month and for it to be right, it's never going to happen. You need to, as my mother would say, many hands make light work. Spread the work around. The final part of the formula is W. Write your commentary. Teach your leaders how to write a good commentary so they reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and we're constantly pointing towards continuous improvement. This is the key. Teach your leaders to FTARW. Now, this schematic is something I encourage all of my clients to use, but this is a real client where I did workshops with them. And we identified straight out of the gate that this was a huge problem in the hotel. That's why they hired me to begin with. But the very first month, nobody was doing their forecast. Nobody was tracking their revenues. Nobody was adjusting anything. Nobody was reviewing anything, and nobody was writing a commentary. The controller was doing their part and the revenue manager was doing their part, but the rest of the operation was completely divorced from the financial process. So what we want to see inside of the hotel is progress. And every single month we check in, we establish this 5-step routine, the monthly financial circle. We teach the leaders, we give them the workshops, and what we see month after month when the leaders have to check in front of their peers and be accountable for what they did and what they didn't do, month after month, we start to see the numbers tick up. And before you know it, we have a financially engaged leadership team. We've got people doing their forecasts, managing the middle of their statements, being responsible for the numbers. And guess what? We've given them the tools, the support, and they like it. They like being involved. They like being close to the engine room. That's what it's all about, because they can see how this is really going to positively impact their lives and their career, and they want to make a difference. So I talked a bit about measuring return on investment in the beginning. So I'm going to show you how all of that works. And I actually learned this from a client. And the client actually, when I was doing the workshop, it was in British Columbia of all places. But this is actually what happened. So in this workshop that I did for a client, there were 30 leaders. And at the end of the day, the GM got up and he thanked me and he asked for some feedback from his people. And I got some good tips and some good comments. And then he said, before I say goodbye to all of you, I want to ask all of you to make an agreement with me. There's that agreement word. Would all of you agree to find $250 this month in your forecast? Just $250. Would all of you agree to find $250? Every single hand in the audience went up. Everybody can find $250. It's nothing. It's one shift of work. It's a case of supplies. It's a smaller chafing dish for the bacon at the last hour of the buffet. There's a million ways to find $250 inside of a hotel. He said, thank you. He said, would all of you also tell our director of finance where you found the money so that we can keep track, so we can tell the owner? Everybody went, sure, no problem. We can do that. Easy enough. He says, he was like Columbo. He said, just one more thing before you go. Would all of you agree to do that every month this year? And you know what it's like. If you found it once, you found it 12 times. It's in the same place every month. So every single hand in the audience went up. This is easy. Get us out of here. Okay, thank you very much. Well, that night on the way home, on the airplane, sipping my cocktail, I scratched this out on my napkin. There were 30 participants. He asked them all to find $250. There are 12 months in the year. That's $90,000 in GOP. Well, that's the bottom line savings for the hotel, which is significant. I'm sure many of them found more than $250. But what does that mean for the owner's piece of the business, for the asset value? Well, the way that assets are measured is what we call cap rates. And when a property sells, we figure out the cap rate based on the selling price divided by the NOP. So the typical cap rate is 8. That's very conservative, which means that property will sell for 12.5 times the NOP. So if I can increase the GOP by 90 grand, I just increased the NOP by 90 grand. And guess what? That owner's business is worth $1.1 million more, all from finding $250. That's the ROI for financial leadership. So to wrap things up, I'm just going to give everyone a little overview of some of the things that people have found that I think will be easy for you to adapt when it comes to savings. ROI samples, I call them. The first one is do a phone audit. There are people out there who will come and grab 4 or 5 years worth of your phone bills, your internet bills, your TV cable bill, and they'll go through it and they will find savings. They will find where you're being overbilled, where you're being taken advantage of, and they will get your money back. And they'll give you 70 or 75% of it. So it's found money. If you haven't done this in your hotel, if you haven't done this in a few years, there's money just laying there for you. And again, you can go back several years. That's the law. Second thing is check the hot water in your hotel. So many hotels have their hot water too hot. And when it's too hot, you're spending too much money keeping it hot. Next one is one of the leaders came up with the idea of stopping the practice of just giving tables at dinner bread and butter. Ask them if they want it. People have very different diet consciousness these days. So give people an option, save you thousands of dollars. The next one, I love this one. When I go to a hotel, I'm always looking around. I'm always trying to get in the maid's closet because it's usually just wide open anyways. And I'm also looking at their little carts and seeing what's on top and seeing what I can take home for a souvenir. And if you don't think that most of your clients do the same thing, you're fooling yourself. So what this hotel did is they did away with the maid's closet, cleaned it out, left the linen in it, made sure it was locked. They also did away with all the supplies in the cart, and they gave the room attendants every morning a box with exactly what they needed for shampoo and for conditioner and for shower caps and shoe mitts. And they reduced their amenities by over 20% just by changing that practice with no additional labor cost. Automatically canceling all of your contracts every year. This is a great practice that many corporations follow. You can do it too. Figure out what you're just paying automatically every month. Send them a letter in November, say you want to cancel the contract. They'll go, what's going on? Can we renegotiate? And then you can renegotiate. You can save money. And I guarantee if you do that, you'll find things that you're not even, that you're paying for that you're not even using.
Excuse me, David.
Yes.
We have to wrap up for our next sessions here.
Okay.
So maybe you could finish your thought on this slide and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
All right. Just set all your photocopiers to duplexing. All right. So I'll move on here to the very end, Mike. Obviously, I can help you guys with workshops, with mentoring, my asset management program, as well as consulting, policy manuals. But what I want to offer every single one of you today is a very special gift. And it goes like this. It's a complimentary 30-minute workshop for you and your team, up to 30 members. And I have just 4 spots that are available courtesy of the British Columbia Hotel Association. And if you'd like one of these spots, all you need to do is send me an email right now at david@hotelfinancialcoach.com. Put in your name, your position, your hotel, and write the word workshop on top. The first 4 people that email me, I will coordinate back with you, set up a time to do your workshop. And with that, I want to say thank you. Where did the time go, Mike?
A lot to cover there, David, a lot to cover. Thank you so much. And that was a very comprehensive overview. I know I saw in the chat a lot of great comments. We apologize we ran out of time for questions. However, this session is being recorded. It will be made available early next week. And as David mentioned, certainly take advantage of his complimentary gifts there. That would be well worth your investment for sure. David, thank you so much again. We appreciate it. It's great to see you. And stay tuned, everyone on the call here. We've got 2 sessions starting at 11:30. Please check the agenda for the information. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.